I am here with the mayor-elect of New York City, Zoran Mamdani. Congratulations. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Last night, New York City elected a mayor unlike any in its history. Not just because he's the youngest in a century. Not just because he's the first Muslim, the first African-born, the first South Asian mayor. And not even because he won more than 1 million votes. Something no candidate has achieved in decades. What makes Zoran Mamdani's victory seismic is that he won as a democratic socialist in the most expensive city in the United States. Tonight, we break down his first major interview after the election and what it tells us about the future in New York under a mayor the political establishment tried desperately to stop.
Youngest mayor in more than a century. So what is the message and the mandate behind that?
The message is about transforming the most expensive city in the United States of America into one that's affordable for each and every New Yorker. And what New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs gave.
The anchor wastes no time, laying out the 4 firsts Mamdani represents. It's a reminder of just how unprecedented his victory is. Mamdani's answer is immediate and sharp. The mandate is affordability. He says voters across all 5 boroughs gave him permission, no instructions, to pursue the most ambitious affordability agenda since LaGuardia in the 1930s. Right away, it's clear. He's not speaking like a cautious, newly elected politician. He's speaking like someone who believes he's been given a historic mission.
Well, let's dig into that, because you're talking about a rent freeze, you're talking about free buses, you're talking about free childcare. Can you do that without raising taxes?
I think you can do that, and I think you have to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make more than $1 million a year, and you do that by raising taxes by them 2%. And then you also increase the corporate tax of New York State to match that of New Jersey. So that takes us from about 7.25 to about 11.5%, which is what we see in New Jersey. These things together raise.
This is where every mayoral candidate for the past 40 years has dodged. Every time affordability comes up, you hear the same excuses. We can't afford it. We can't raise taxes. The wealthy will flee. Mamdani refuses that script entirely. He gives a detailed revenue plan. 2% tax increase on millionaires. Raise corporate tax to match New Jersey. Result, $9 billion in new revenue. Whether you agree with him or not, this is unusual. New York mayors rarely talk about mechanics. They talk about feelings. He's talking about math. That alone signals a different era.
To Trump-proof our city.
But are you worried that could drive a lot of job creators out of New York?
So what I've heard from a number of business leaders is that the affordability crisis is also affecting their ability to attract and retain.
This question has been asked in every mayoral interview since the 1970s. Mamdani's answer flips the entire economic debate on its head. Business leaders themselves are struggling to attract talent because the city is unaffordable. He argues that childcare is so expensive, $20,500 per year, that companies are already paying the price in lost workers, lost applicants, and massive stipends just to help parents survive. He reframes taxes not as a punishment, but as a strategic reinvestment to reduce pressures businesses already face.
What kind of a tax increase is going to require the state as well, including the governor, Kathy Hochul? Is she on board?
You know, I'm proud to have Governor Kathy Hochul's endorsement and the endorsement of our agenda, specifically universal childcare. And I've said time and again, I think these are the 2 most direct and straightforward ways to.
New York City can't raise income taxes without Albany's approval. So the anchor asks the question every analyst has wondered. Is Governor Hochul even on board? Mamdani says yes. She endorsed him and endorsed universal childcare. This is significant. It means the friction isn't coming from the Democratic governor. It's coming from the billionaire class, who funded ads against him for months.
Fund this agenda.
You said that President Trump was watching you last night. It appears that he was watching you. And it also appears that he and other Republicans are trying to make you the poster boy of the Democratic Party. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, calls you a true extremist and a Marxist. And he says now.
And then comes a part that tells you everything about the national stakes. Trump is watching him. Republican leadership is attacking him. The Speaker of the House calls him extremist and a Marxist. They want to turn Mamdani into the face of the Democratic Party, to run against him in 2026. Mamdani doesn't blink. He contrasts Trump's promises about cheap groceries with Trump cutting SNAP benefits and making food more expensive. This is a man who clearly prepared for this moment.
down on New York City, maybe even do what he's done and tried to do in Portland and other cities, call the National Guard in?
You know, I think that his threats are inevitable. I also know that it's time we actually call this for what it is. This has nothing to do with safety. It has to do with intimidation. If it was safety, President Trump would be threatening to deploy the National Guard to the top 10 states of crime, 8 out of which are all Republican-led, but because of that party, he won't actually be.
This is where the interview turns serious. The anchor asks if Trump might do in New York what he tried in Portland: deploy federal force to intimidate the city. Mamdani's reply is blunt. This is not about safety. This is intimidation. He points out that the top 10 states with the highest crime are overwhelmingly Republican. So Trump is selective, not sincere. It's a sharp political answer, but delivered calmly, without theatrics.
Doing so.
So you say you won't be intimidated. How do you stand up to it?
I think there's a number of ways. The first thing is you actually utilize the courts. You stop treating things as being law just by virtue of the fact that President Trump is saying them. You can look at the example of California, where you find the Attorney General, the Governor, and the Mayor of LA coming together, filing a lawsuit in opposition to the deployment of the National Guard. A federal judge found in their favor, and the Attorney General estimates.
Mamdani outlines a clear legal plan. Use courts. Use precedents. Use state alliances. He cites California's lawsuit-blocking National Guard deployment and the financial damages they recovered. This isn't the language of fear. It's the language of governance.
Convinced Commissioner Tisch to stay on the police commissioner?
You know, I've made my decision to retain Commissioner Tisch, and I've done so because Eric Adams had stacked the upper echelons of the NYPD with incompetence and corruption. She came in, started to tackle that, deliver accountability, and reduce crime across the 5 boroughs. That is what we would build upon under a Mamdani administration, in addition to creating a Department of Community Safety to tackle the mental health and homelessness crisis head on.
You've made your decision. Has she made hers?
Then comes one of the most politically surprising choices. Mamdani will retain NYPD Commissioner Tisch. Why? Because she began cleaning up what he calls incompetence and corruption left behind by Adams. He also introduces a new initiative, Department of Community Safety, focusing on mental health and homelessness. This is a shift away from pure policing toward a multi-front approach to public safety.
You also said you wanted to reach out to New Yorkers who didn't vote for you. Probably highest on that list is Jewish New Yorkers. It looks like there was about a 30-point gap, according to the exit polls, between you and former Governor Cuomo. How do you convince those voters that your vision of New York includes them and your victory is not a threat to them?
You know, I was on the M57 not too long ago, which is the slowest bus in New York City, 4.9 miles an hour. And I was seated next to a woman who introduced herself to me as a speech therapist. And she told me that she was Jewish, and she said that her daughter is a huge fan in phone banks from college and that she wasn't so sure. And I asked her to share, and she shared her thoughts about what it also means to be Jewish in New York City today and the scourge of anti-Semitism that often worries her, that she was trying to sell her apartment. A realtor told her to put away, in her words, the Jewish books on her bookshelf. And I told her that this was unacceptable, that we were fighting for a city that didn't just protect Jewish New Yorkers, but celebrated and cherished those same New Yorkers. And I'm looking forward.
Exit polls show Mamdani trail Cuomo by 30 points among Jewish voters. The anchor asks the toughest question of the night. How do you convince them you're not a threat? Mamdani responds with empathy, not defensiveness. He tells a story of a Jewish speech therapist he met on the slowest bus in the city. She faced anti-Semitism from a realtor telling her to hide her Jewish books. He says his goal isn't just to protect Jewish New Yorkers, but to celebrate them. This is the kind of response that builds bridges, not headlines.
Didn't seem to work with this group of voters. What more can you do now?
Well, I think there are a lot of voters for whom the trust comes from the actions that you actually take. Many have have understandably been disappointed by politics and the promises that have been made by many before me. Now my opportunity is actually to deliver.
When pressed that voters didn't fully trust him on this issue, Mamdani says something essential. Trust doesn't come from words. It comes from governing. It's humble. It's direct. And it positions his administration as one that will try to prove itself, not demand automatic support.
Out last night on Next from Bill Ackman, who was one of your biggest opponents in the campaign. Billionaire, spent a lot of money trying to defeat you, but he did congratulate you and say he wants you to call on him to help New York. What are you going to call on him to do?
Well, I appreciated his words, and I think what I find is that there is a needed commitment from leaders of the city to speak and work with anyone who is committed to lowering the cost.
The billionaire who spent millions trying to defeat him, Bill Ackman, suddenly congratulates him and offers help. Mamdani accepts the olive branch, but keeps the message focused. Anyone who's serious about lowering the cost of living is welcome to work with him. It is politically mature and strategically brilliant. This interview wasn't just an introduction to a new mayor. It was a preview of a new kind of political leadership. Fearless, analytical, and deeply grounded in working-class struggles. Whether you agree with his agenda or not, one thing is clear. Zoran Mamdani is not entering City Hall quietly. He is entering with a mandate to reshape the most iconic city in the world. An entire country is watching.